I'm sure you are well aware that Jews are in endless peril. Jews are constantly and endlessly targeted for murder for being Jewish all around the world. It's basically just endlessly like an open hunting season on Jews. They are killed everywhere. They are not safe anywhere. You probably believe everything that I've just said. Most of you absolutely uncritically believe everything that I've just said because you've been told to believe it by the media, by Zionist lobby organizations, indeed by your government. Have you ever actually wondered whether it's true, though? Have you ever actually looked into the evidence for these claims to see whether they're true? Well, one country did. It's a country called Israel. Israel went looking for anti-Semitic murder incidents all around the world. They wanted to tally them up for propaganda purposes, so they could say, oh my God, there's this massive global rise in anti-Semitism that they could then use as cover to massacre Palestinians, as they do. And let's just say, Israel didn't really find as many of these anti-Semitic murders that we have been led to believe are literally happening everywhere all the time. They really couldn't find very much at all, in fact. So, just last year, in December last year, in fact, less than a year ago, the Israeli government convened a special committee to investigate incidents of anti-Semitic violence, anti-Semitic killings of what they call the Jewish diaspora, because, according to them, any Jew who doesn't live in Israel is like a diaspora. And they managed to find, with help from the Jewish Agency and the World Zionist Organization, 155 non-Israeli Jews who have been murdered abroad between 1958 and 2024. Almost 70 years, and there's been 155 supposedly anti-Semitic killings outside of Israel. That's way less than I'm sure you believed, right? Infinitely less. I'm sure you thought there were like tens of thousands at least, given how often this is talked about. There have been single massacres of Christians, of Muslims, of dozens of different ethnic groups, motivated by hatred for those religions or those ethnic groups, that had more victims than have died in every single anti-Jewish killing combined worldwide since 1958. You would think this number would be literally 1,000 times higher than this, but it's not, is it? You should interrogate why you thought that was. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is, of course, because of the event of the last week, the Bondi shooting by two men who seem to have been motivated since 2019 by connections to ISIS, or at least ISIS ideology. Probably it's more likely they didn't have direct connections with ISIS itself because it barely even exists anymore. And they killed 15 people there, so we can put 15 more on top of that, okay? 170. Still, 170 since 1958 isn't very much, is it? It's way fewer than what you would have thought. Now, my reaction to this was very simple. I'm not going to perform care specifically for Zionists. Why should I care more about this shooting than I should any other shooting anywhere in the world, just because its victims were Jews, and indeed it was a Zionist Jewish event? Why should I care? Why am I supposed to care more about this? A lot of people apparently can't believe that, right? Like on the same day, Israel killed Palestinian children all around the world died in brutal massacres, yet I'm supposed to specifically care for this one event? I don't think I'm going to do that. A lot of people got angry about my stance on this, which, I'll look into a bit more soon. But first I want to note some more context surrounding this event. The event was run by an organization called Chabad for Israelis, which is an offshoot of the Chabad international terrorist organization. Chabad is a notorious fanatical religious organization that is very, very pro-Zionist, pro-genocide, very, very supportive of the Holocaust of the Palestinian people. It's essentially like Israel is already Jewish ISIS, make no mistake. But Chabad is like a Jewish ISIS on steroids. And it's just legal. It's just allowed to exist. Like this event, which was a Hanukkah event, they keep reminding you of that. I don't know. Imagine like a fucking Ramadan event hosted by ISIS. It's the equivalent of that. As noted in the Zionist Jewish Forward newspaper, the event was hosted by Chabad for Israelis, a synagogue and community designed for Israelis in the area. Great, okay? So the event was led by Rabbi Eli Schlanger, who the media have been telling us is a joyful and lovely person. There was nothing to dislike about him. But he really betrays the character of this event and its attendees. He is a perfect encapsulation of what Chabad is. Here's Eli Schlanger hanging out with IDF soldiers, having a great time. Here's Eli Schlanger talking about colonizing Gaza.
And a special thank you to all those from all around the world that have given funds and supported the Jewish people of Israel. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, I am here at the Marpeset Shel Hamdina, which means the porch of the country. It's an unbelievable place. It's a very, very high peak, and from here you can see half the country. Unbelievable place. Can you imagine if this was in the hands of the Arabs? This is right in the heart of the West Bank. This is why this needs to be in the hands of the Jewish people, because of its security, and obviously the obvious, because it belongs to us, because it's our land. I'm standing over here with a beautiful, beautiful Chayal, soldier, a man who has left his family to be able to protect this village at this very, very heightened moment. What's your name?
And my name is Dolev.
Dolev. And Dolev, on behalf of the entire village over here, has received a very, very sizable donation from our community in Sydney, and he has a couple of words to say.
You hear that? This man received a donation from the very Chabad that was hosting this Bondi event. Isn't that interesting? They donate to Israeli soldiers.
Okay, so first of all, hi from hi from Israel to the beautiful community of Sydney. As representative of the reserve group, that we stationed here in Blue, I want to thank you for your donation. We still need some lot of equipment like shoes, new vests.
Can I show you your shoes?
Yeah, I'm still...
These people literally equipped the IDF. This organization literally equipped the IDF. Remember that.
I'm not wearing proper army shoes.
You understand? He's in the army and he's wearing regular sneakers. Shouldn't work like that.
So
we're being called.
Now, it's not right.
There you go.
It's not right.
Okay, we're leaving.
It's not right to hold everybody up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're coming. We're coming.
Okay, we're walking.
So thank you very much for your donation. It's going to go directly to support our battalion here. And thank you so much. And also thank you for sending your...
Here is what Rabbi Eli Schlanger had to say about Palestinian children. According to him, they were Amalek. That is the people in the Bible who God commanded the Jews to wipe out, to genocide. They were Amalek, 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 Amalek. This was the host of this supposedly neutral Hanukkah event. I wonder what Chabad itself says about Palestinians. Let's look into that. The Chabad organization, it's the main organization, has a page on its website called How Do I Explain Israel's Actions in Gaza? It gives them a myriad of talking points on how to justify the Gaza genocide. This is Chabad.org, their main website, 100% representative of what they are as an organization. Let's see what they say about, street cleaners, for example, who technically are associated with Hamas because Hamas is the government of Gaza. People who like doctors who are paid by the government of Gaza, right? I wonder if they differentiate them from people who are in Hamas's militant wing. Let's see what they say about that. Question. Hamas indeed has a militant wing, but it does a lot of good. They are responsible for social programs, educational projects, and humanitarian work in Gaza. By destroying Hamas, Israel also destroys all the good work they do. Aren't we demonizing a group that is not all bad? Answer. If a serial killer also happens to volunteer for his local hospital, has donated money to an orphanage, and looks after his ailing grandmother, he is still a serial killer. And he and the threat he represents must be treated as such. The danger he poses far outweighs the concern for any good he may do. I wonder how this would work if we applied that same logic to the Chabad International Terrorist Organization, to those in it, who may not fight themselves, but who donate to the fighters nonetheless, who support them, who spam Amalek in response to pictures of massacred Palestinian children on Twitter. I wonder what the implications of that just might be. I'd like to show you the words of the Chabad Messiah, the Rebbe, as they call him, the one who is essentially the most important figure in the organization's history, whose doctrine they follow. Here's what he said, I quote, "The difference between a Jewish and a non-Jewish person stems from the common expression, 'let us differentiate.' Thus, we do not have a case of profound change in which a person is merely on a superior level. Rather, we have a case of, 'let us differentiate between totally different species.' This is what needs to be said about the body. The body of a Jewish person is of a totally different quality from the body of members of all nations of the world. The difference of the inequality, however, is so great that the body should be considered as a completely different species. This is the reason why the Talmud states that there is halachic difference in the attitude about the bodies of non-Jews. Their bodies are in vain. An even greater difference exists in regard to the soul. Two contrary types of soul exist. A non-Jewish soul comes from free satanic spheres, while the Jewish soul stems from holiness. A Jew was not created as a means for some other purpose. He himself is the purpose, since the substance of all divine emanation were created only to serve the Jews. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth, which means that the heavens and the earth were created for the sake of Jews, who are called the beginning. Welcome to Chabad. Now, you might think that man is a derided extremist, right? Like, he sounds like a fucking ISIS imam or something, or even worse. You might think, there's something particularly egregious about that would lead people to rightfully perceive of him and the organization that follows his doctrine, as they should be, as insane fundamentalist terrorists who should be opposed by any good person. Anyway, here is supposedly anti-Zionist incoming New York City mayor, Zoran Mamdani, praying at the grave of the man who said those words that I just read out to you. There's fundamentally a problem of perception here. If you don't see this sort of ideology for what it is, which is Nazism, in fact, technically it's worse than Nazism because at least Nazism is not this level of a threat at this very moment in time. It's the same sort of thing ideologically, though. But in terms of priority, in terms of its actual material effect, it's much worse. We all have a limited amount of sympathy that we can give out. We all can't think about everything that's happening in the world. As I'm speaking right now, a child died somewhere in the world. A child was murdered. You're not going to hear about it in the news. You're not going to hear about it anywhere. So my opinion here is that, well, I think the victims of this mass shooting at this Chabad event should be afforded precisely the same amount of sympathy as they afforded to Palestinian children. You should think about them precisely as much as they did the massacred Palestinian babies in Gaza. And I think that even those of you who are uneasy about this know precisely, in your heart of hearts, just how much that was. So the only people who are going to benefit from this attack are obviously Zionists. Zionists are frothing at the mouth at this. Zionists are so happy. Like, this is probably the best thing that has happened for Zionism in a long time. It's not surprising that it happened to be carried out by ISIS-supporting ideologues, given that ISIS has largely served Israel's interest for its entire existence, to the point where it's often speculated that Israel supports ISIS in some way, or it perhaps even founded it. This is absolutely no different whatsoever. This just 100% serves Israel's interest. It was immediately used as justification to ban protests in Australia, to ban pro-Palestinian slogans in Britain. Obviously, they can't win the war of facts because everyone sees what Israel is. Everyone knows what it is, so they have to try to shut you down. And for that purpose, 15 dead people for Zionists, that's well worth it. They are a death cult. They are incredibly happy about this. So if there's something that you should actually specifically care about here, it's not performing sympathy. It's rather thinking about how they're going to use this to justify cracking down on people and forcing you to comply with the genocidal Zionist ideology that is held by the vast majority of the Jewish community, including outside of Israel. If we look, for example, at recent polls from the UK regarding Jewish opinion on Israel, this is from April 2025, at least 60% of Jews in Britain have donated to a charity supporting Israel since October 7th. 65% identify as Zionist. 71% feel a great deal of concern for the lives of Israelis. 77% feel attached to Israel. 88% regard Israel as the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. Overall, 72% of British Jews feel some degree of pride in Israel. Can you imagine if I was saying these sorts of numbers for ISIS support? But we treat this as normal and acceptable, and in fact, if you bring this up, you're an anti-Semite. The fact that the Jewish community abroad essentially has this endemic problem of support for terrorism is something that needs to be brought up constantly, especially in this context, because what has made Jewish institutions internationally political is the institutions themselves and the people supporting them. It's not like you can just have a neutral Hanukkah event hosted by Chabad for Israelis, led by a rabbi who runs fundraisers at these events to get donations for IDF soldiers. So with all of this context, is it good that these people were killed? No. Do I particularly care though? No, I also don't. You're not going to force me to care. I don't have to care. I will not care. I will not perform care. The reason why a lot of people feel the need to specifically perform care in this instance is either because they are bullied into doing so by the pervasive Zionism among the media, governments, Zionist lobby, etc., disciplining them into doing so. They do so out of fear, or because they have this endemic sense of Jewish exceptionalism combined with white supremacy, combined with first world supremacy. It's the trifecta. Mass shooting in Australia, first world country, of whites, that's another one, of Jews. That's the perfect trifecta. That's everyone must specifically care about this. On the same day, there was definitely a mass shootings in the Congo, in Africa, somewhere thereabouts. You wouldn't have heard about it though. Israel killed some Palestinians, a couple of Palestinian kids. Didn't hear about that though. So the specific relevance here is not so much about this being something that is specifically worth caring about, like it's some sort of unique and special tragedy. Because in the grand scheme of things, it was not. And the reason why you think so is a sense of Jewish exceptionalism, combined with, first world chauvinism, white supremacy. The reason why you might want to specifically care about this is because of how it's going to be utilized and how it's already being utilized. Zionists have been frothing at the mouth for this forever. They have endlessly been telling you about how Jews are in endless peril, way more so than anyone else, which, as I showed at the beginning of this segment, they're actually not. Even with these deaths added on to the statistics, they're still not, so don't fall for it. There are some people who did fall for it, though. Some people who felt the morally righteous need to call me out. Like a guy who's like a stereotype of an Australian bogan, who seems to consider himself some sort of radical. Here is what guy with a voice who none of you will be able to take seriously had to say about me simply saying, never let them force you into performing sympathy for Zionists.
For those of us who care about the ongoing genocide in Gaza,
oh my fucking God, it's worse than I thought.
To stay our sentiments about the tragedy. Similarly, leftist content guy Ben Empanada saying, never let them force you into performing sympathy for Zionists. And here is 10-year-old Matilda at the beach at the event at a petting zoo, not long before the events that we're all aware of. Sorry that I'm too much of an optics cuck to not call this person, may they rest in peace, a Zionist.
Now, you might notice a bit of a lie there. What I said was never let them force you into performing sympathy for Zionists. It's possibly likely that this child was probably the only person there who wasn't a Zionist, because who the fuck else goes to Chabad events aside from Zionists? Be fucking real for 1 second. But you will notice that he gives this child a name. He specifically points out this one child, this one white Australian Jewish child. Very specifically points her out as someone worthy of being named, worthy of being specifically pointed out. Has he specifically pointed out the dozens of Palestinian children massacred by Israel in just this last week? No, he hasn't. He hasn't said anything about them. Let me specifically name some who were massacred by Israel yesterday for you, who Tom Tanuki will certainly not be talking about, this supposed anti-Zionist. 7 victims of one family were murdered in a school yesterday. Atef Ahmed Al-Nidir, Fatima Al-Najjar, Amar Atef Al-Nidir, 4 months old, Fawzi Abdullah Al-Nidir, Arwa Omar Al-Nidir, Samira Fawzi Al-Nidir, a child. Sama Fawzi Al-Nidir, a child. You want me to specifically perform care, to perform sympathy for this one child, white, Jewish, and Australian, when you yourself have never done anything like this for a single Palestinian child? Okay, no, you've probably done it for Hin Rajab, just because she's been mentioned in the media. Why are the other tens of thousands of massacred Palestinian children not worthy of this sort of specific mention for you? You should interrogate that. For you, certain children are worth pointing out specifically. It just so happens to be one who is Jewish. You have mentioned this one Jewish child more than you have any individual Palestinian child over the last 2 years, and you consider yourself an anti-Zionist. That's disgraceful. Now, this is a typical Zionist manipulation tactic as well, right? Like, you have to care about this. There was a child. Very interesting. They did this also with Kfir Bibas. You think the RDF reservist settlers on the frontier don't deserve our sympathy? Look at the cute baby. It's just classic fucking Zionism. Tom Tanuki, what's your opinion on October 7th? 36 children were killed on October 7th. What do you think about that? If that's the best talking point you have here, perhaps you don't have a good talking point at all. It's pure Zionist manipulation. Like, you'd think a 45-year-old fucking man who's supposedly like a left-wing political radical would have a better argument than just look at this cute baby, look at this cute child. Isn't she so cute? Isn't she so Jewish and white, specifically? How dare you not let Zionists bully you into specifically performing sympathy for her and the 14 other people at this event on the same day that hundreds of people worldwide were massacred, including dozens of Palestinians? As I speak here, another Palestinian child was killed literally an hour ago. Rayan Abu Mualla, he was killed by the Israeli military in the West Bank. Tom Tanuki's not going to mention him. He's not Jewish. Something that you have to come to terms with is that Zionism is a global terrorist movement with massive global support from your government, from Zionist institutions worldwide, and indeed from the vast majority of the Jewish community. This is just something that you need to come to terms with, because if you don't come to terms with this, how will you ever fight this? If you're not realistic about what's happening, how will you ever fight this? Muslims fought extremism in their own communities. They neutered it. You know, most of the like arrests of prospective terrorists that have ever happened have been on tips from Muslims themselves. What happens when a Jewish extremist terrorist wants to do a terrorist attack? He goes to Israel and joins the military. Is Tom Tanuki talking about that? I don't think he is. He says something here that is a very common refrain that I want to address as well.
Of course, Islamic State don't bother with the distinction between the political ideology of Zionism and
Jesus fucking Christ, his voice.
Jewish life. They don't believe in that distinction. They're essentialists. That essentialism is the domain of every genocidal fascist and totalitarian the world around, of course. Also, like Ben Gvir, these are people who dehumanize and they don't acknowledge a distinction between innocent life and combatants.
I want you to remember what I said earlier about what Chabad thinks about random government employees in Gaza and members of Al-Qassam. The people who you are performing sympathy for here didn't have that distinction either. For most Jewish people worldwide, easily 70%, in some places 80%, Israel and Judaism are one and the same. They're essential to one another. Essentialist, as you said. It's not me and others like me or anyone else who essentialize Jews. In most cases, it's simply Jews themselves who are doing this now. And ultimately, who's anti-Semitic here in the end? Is it the Jews themselves who believe this for believing it? Or is it you for telling them that they're wrong? Better question, why does it matter? Why is it the realm of anti-Zionists to care so much about saving Judaism, to care specifically so much about Jews? Why are Jews so specifically special to you? That's a bizarre thing, right? I mean, Israel is this Jewish supremacist state. It massacres people for the Jewish supremacist ideology of Zionism, which is an ideology that is upheld by at least 60, 70, perhaps 80% plus of Jewish people worldwide. Why the fuck is it our job to do PR for Jewish people, for the Jewish religion, for Jewish culture, for the Jewish community? Why is it our job to spread this lie that they don't, by and large, support this? Our concern is with the Palestinian people. It's not with rehabilitating Judaism. It's not with saving Judaism. It doesn't matter whether most Jews support Israel or not. We'll fight it all the same. But people like this, as is going to say in a second here, literally are extremely concerned about this for some reason. It's almost like their main motivation for being anti-Zionist is not so much to stop the slaughter of the Palestinian people by Jewish supremacist Jews. Rather, it's to make sure and go to pains that this does not result in anyone thinking even slightly negatively about the Jewish community. Like, their priority is not in saving Palestinians, it's in doing PR for Jewish people. That's just bizarre.
Who are principled anti-Zionists, on the other hand, are willing and able to twist themselves into a fucking pretzel, educating and clarifying on the distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. You're actually forced to, in the face of relentless gaslighting and Hasbro disinfo campaigning from our, Zionist political opponents. We have to do so anyway because it's fundamentally important to show that we value life, not at the expense of Jewish life.
You notice how he mentions Jewish life specifically. I don't think I've heard anyone but like the worst Zionists you say Jewish life so specifically. This is just bizarre. Jewish life? What the fuck kind of a phrase is that? Like the pure confidence with which he talks here while spouting just straight up racial supremacism without even noticing it is just bizarre and uncomfortable as fuck. Jewish life? You could just say life. The sanctity of Jewish life specifically?
But you don't have to look far in this world to find many people, and many very visible ones, who gladly point the finger at Jewish life. And Islamic State are just one example of that. You can also look to other.
Now he's going to perform here concern for something very specific. I want to talk about this as well because it's emblematic of the problem that I'm talking about here.
Other anti-Semitic ideologies, such as that of the National Socialist Network, who were privately celebrating this Jewish massacre and who, as I already said earlier in the video, have a policy platform in the event of launching a political party that will include deporting everyone of Jewish descent.
So this is a tiny fringe neo-Nazi group, mostly of unemployed losers. I myself have investigated a lot of these people. I know this guy probably has as well. Most of these people are total fucking losers who are never going to get anything done. Here's a question for this guy and others like him. Do you consider these people to be worse than Zionists? Do you consider Chabad to be worse than these people or not? Because it is. Do you draw any equivalence between these people? Because they are the same. Zionism is Jewish Nazism. Chabad is a particularly villainous strain of Jewish Nazism. But you're not concerned about that. You've never made a video about this specifically. What you do make a video about, though, is you go to fucking pains to tell us how, we should care specifically about this event. Imagine if there was a mass shooting at, a KKK Christmas party or something. Do you think this guy would be crying tears about it? Do you think he'd be pointing out the children who were brought there? Do you think that he'd be demanding outrage that you perform care for them? I don't at all. He'd be celebrating it, honestly. It's the same shit always. Let me talk about the fucking internet podcast Nazis.
People around the world such as Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Dan Bilzerian and more who do not make the anti-Zionist distinction because they aren't anti-Zionists. They are anti-Semites.
Why are you so specifically worried about these people who are fundamentally internet podcasters with no real political momentum, no real control over policy? They certainly don't control an outright ethno-state. Why are you so specifically concerned with them when you have actually existing real Nazism in Israel? Indeed, backed by the very Chabad organization that organized that Bondi Hanukkah event. The very rabbi who led that Bondi Hanukkah event. In fact, this event was attended by a plethora of Israeli government propaganda employees, people whose job it is to justify genocide. How are you talking about fucking Candace Owens here and Nick Fuentes as if these are the things that we should be thinking about when the priority is so clear, when what's actually really materially happening is so clear? It's not white supremacist Nazism, it's Jewish supremacist Nazism. That's the problem right fucking now, in reality. And you're talking about Nick Fuentes. You're telling us that we need to specifically care about Jewish victims, more so than anything else. Which you clearly do because you're not specifically mentioning Palestinians, are you? Palestinians for you are nameless statistics.
Burgeoning class of nearly everyone in the fucking world who doesn't like what they've seen Israel do to hundreds of thousands of dead Palestinian children.
Palestinian children are statistics. Jewish children have names and photos.
Every man and his fucking dog hates what they've done to those poor fucking babies in Gaza.
Reality check for you. Chabad doesn't. Most of the people at that event didn't. These are just facts. These are statistical facts that you will call anti-Semitic. It's backed by polls. Every fucking poll you look at is Jewish people reaffirming their support for Israel. The one that I showed you earlier was for the UK. It's worse in Australia. Let me show you. Among polled Jewish people in Australia, 90% believe it is important that the Australian Jewish community maintains close ties with Israel. 88% feel a high level of personal connectedness with Israel. 86% believe the existence of Israel is essential for the future of the Jewish people. 83% keep up with current events involving Israel. 80% indicate a high level of concern for Israel's safety. This is a reality that you need to confront. It's also a reality that as a supposed anti-Zionist, your voice isn't fucking needed for Jewish people. Jewish people have the entire fucking mainstream media apparatus literally telling you that they are in endless peril all the time. They have massive lobbying organizations. One of the most well-organized and united networks of religious organizations in the entire world. I can't think of any other religious group or ethnic group that is in such lockstep with one another in terms of how they organize. Not just Jewish people, but Zionists especially, have all of this shit on their side. They don't need your help. Palestinians do need your help. Palestinians do need you to specifically point to them. They do need you to point out how they need sympathy on a much bigger scale, an infinitely bigger scale. Because every individual killing in Palestine is a Jewish supremacist anti-Palestinian hate crime. And let me tell you, there have been single massacres of Palestinians that have killed more Palestinians than Jews who have been killed in anti-Semitic attacks All of them combined since 1958. You can perform care all you want for Zionists. Just know that in doing so, especially in the way that you did here, where you specifically demand that we perform sympathy for a Jewish victim, you specifically demand that we perform sympathy for people at a Chabad event, you specifically demand that we perform sympathy for a rabbi and his community who literally donate to the fucking IDF. You're just essentially doing Zionism. You're doing Jewish exceptionalism. At the very least, Jewish supremacy probably would be a better label to put on it, because you clearly believe there's something special about Jews. That means that in this situation, where we have Israel, that is a Jewish ethno-state, a Jewish supremacist ethno-state, run by Jews, for Jews, supported by most Jews worldwide. Again, a reality that you need to confront. You think that in this situation, bizarrely, we need to be thinking a lot and often about protecting the Jewish people who support this. Not all of them, but most of them. You think that we need to specifically be worried about them doing PR for them, for their community. You know, imagine someone who claimed to be anti-Nazi, yet he was extremely concerned, less so about the fucking Holocaust, and more so about ensuring that everyone doesn't think that the Nazis represent all Germans, and who was like very intent on making sure that you specifically perform sympathy for the German children who were dying. That's you, my friend. That's you. If you are a Zionist, what you should be doing, more so than spending even a modicum of effort making a video talking about how we should perform sympathy for these Jewish people who died in Bondi, what you should be doing is advocating for the international banning of the Chabad organization as a terrorist organization. What you should be doing is lobbying your government to prosecute the people who travel to Israel and join the IDF from its ranks. News Corp reported in 2023, with a number that at this point is surely an underestimate, that there were up to 1,000 Australian Jews who traveled to Israel to serve in the IDF. These are the sorts of things that you as an Australian should be focused on, not telling us about how we need to go to pains to worry specifically about separating Judaism from Zionism or whatever, which most Jews themselves don't even do, and which is fundamentally irrelevant to what our actual goal is, which is liberating Palestinian people from the Jewish supremacist ideology of Zionism. We should not be giving a single fuck about whether Judaism is linked to Zionism or not, because what does it matter? What do you think? If it is linked to Zionism, if most Jews are Zionists, does that make Zionism more legitimate? If you don't think that, then there's no reason for you to be so concerned about this, unless your actual concern is just, I don't know, a real bizarre fucking philo-Semitism. This endless Jewish peril that you believe is always happening isn't happening. Jews are not an oppressed group. If anything, Jews are a globally privileged group. They have higher incomes than most other people. They are seen overwhelmingly as just generic white people. They are specifically catered to way more than pretty much any other ethnicity, especially given how relatively small a percentage of the population they tend to be in most places. That, their issues are given massive media prominence. Politicians specifically cater to them. They have an incredibly well-organized and influential lobbying apparatus in so many countries, places you wouldn't even expect, especially in Australia. Australia, what is it, 200,000 Jews, something like that? It's a tiny population. Yet you hear about them endlessly. And then, of course, on top of that, they have this ethno-state specifically run by them and for them, called Israel, that most of them support, that most of them have traveled to, that most of them have family in. Get with the fucking program. We're not talking about 1939 here. We're talking about 2025. You're not advocating on behalf of an oppressed minority here. You're advocating for what is essentially us to specifically care about something that is adjacent to anti-white racism. The very fact that we talk specifically about anti-Semitism as its own thing, rather than it being encompassed by anti-racism, is so indicative of the pervasiveness of Jewish exceptionalism. So no, I'm not going to perform sympathy specifically for the Bondi attack. Is it bad that it happened? Yes, but the reason why I think it's bad isn't because I specifically care about the people who died. People die all over the world every day. I do not have the time nor the ability to specifically care and specifically mention all of them. What I do have is the time and the ability to think about what the consequences of this will be politically. And it's going to be very bad politically, because this is, as I said, this is a great thing for what Zionists have been wanting to do, which is they cannot suppress the evidence of their crimes, so they want to suppress you from being able to advocate against their crimes, which is, again, something that as an Australian, you should be specifically focusing on. You shouldn't be like putting a picture of a cute little child on the screen and trying to tell me that, you know, I should be ashamed because I do not specifically care about her, when the reason why you yourself specifically care about her is because she's Jewish. Interrogate your beliefs. Interrogate these deeply held beliefs that you espouse in a fucking parody of an Australian accent. If you at all want to develop as a person, want to become politically useful in any way, shape, or form, because right now you're not useful. All that you do is report on fucking the fringe Nazi movement in Australia that does almost nothing. Like, what did the Australian Nazis do? They beat their wives. They go to jail for beating up their wives every now and again. They don't actually do anything. Well, I mean, they killed Muslims once. Don't forget that. Killed 51 Muslims. But if you want to develop beyond just being this guy who, rather than specifically focusing and meeting the moment on the real issue that we're dealing with now, what have you been covering? Nazi marches, fringe Nazi marches, fringe Nazi marches, fringe Nazi marches, fringe Nazi pedophiles, fringe Nazi pedophiles, fringe Nazi marches. Finally, 5 months ago, we get to one single video about how, like, you know, they're conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Like, this guy has been focused very singularly, with occasional like token mentions of Zionism and Gaza and such, on Nazism in Australia. Buddy, the problem in Australia isn't Nazism. It is a problem, but it's a rather small one compared to Zionism. Nazism isn't backed by your government. Nazism doesn't have a broad and well-accepted lobbying organism behind it. Doesn't have a bunch of institutions backing it. Doesn't have the backing of the mainstream media. Get your priorities straight. You want to know why you think this? Check out this video. I made it specifically for people like you. Jewish exceptionalism, liberal Zionism, Jewish supremacy, how you inadvertently support Israel. You very much do so. People like you desperately need to watch this so you can develop politically. Perhaps for the first time in a long time. Anyway, how dare I not specifically perform sympathy for Zionists? No, actually. I will dare to do that. I will continue daring to do that. I didn't perform sympathy for the hostages. I didn't perform sympathy for the victims of October 7th, among them children as well. I didn't perform sympathy for, you know, the Jewish victims of, attacks in the West Bank or whatever. Never have, never will. I'm not going to do it in this case either. There's a lot of dead Palestinian children who are a lot higher on my list of priority before I get to the ones who were brought to Zionist Chabad events by their callous parents. In short, Chopper Reed, or at least a Chopper Reed impersonator, he had some good advice for people like this. For timid, little, tacit liberal Zionists like this, who are deathly afraid of saying anything that could even remotely be effective, and even diagnosing the problem of what Zionism is and how to combat it, let alone actually, taking effective action against it.
This is Stefan. His name is Stefan. Harden the fuck up, Stefan.
I'll go edit that in later. Couldn't have said it better myself. Harden the fuck up, Tom. Harden the fuck up, all you people who are splitting hairs about this, who are concerned about this for any reason, aside from how they're going to use it against us. Harden the fuck up. Shit like this is going to happen. They're going to try and make you fall in line. They're going to try and make you specifically care about this. And if you do it, you're letting them fucking win. You're setting the movement back. You have to be firm sometimes. Firm in ways that might go against your own moralistic personal impulses. But if you're not willing to do that, harden the fuck up or get out. We'd be better off without a lot of you people.